Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I'm running a little bit late this week with this episode. Reason being, I had dental surgery on Friday, and it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. I had to wait between examinations and X-rays and follow-up appointments and getting scheduled with the dental surgeon. It took about 2 months from the time the tooth first broke and got infected to Friday when they were able to remove it, and it got infected 3 times during that period. So the infection actually got into my jaw and my lip system, and it was pretty serious. So yeah, so from Friday morning till now, I've been really sore and swollen in my mouth, and uh, kind of froggy in my voice, of course, because my all the lymph nodes, on my throat were all swollen up. So if my voice sounds a little funny, that's the reason. But I'm also, uh, I don't know if I picked it up when I was in the clinic or if it was on one of the follow-up visits or what. Somehow got a little stomach bug, a stomach flu, and here I was like the evening of the dental surgery, started having diarrhea and running fevers. So it's been a real fun weekend. But I can get into a little bit of an herbal topic with that, and bear with me, I'm still running a fever right now, so I may be a little spacey. So um, did not want to leave the house uh, down in the central part of the state, a relative's house, and because I needed someone to drive me back from the dental appointment. I'm a bachelor, so I don't really have anybody I can count on except a relative, and didn't have really what I might need when the diarrhea started up. So used whatever was in the cupboard, and fortunately there was some chamomile tea. Chamomile tea, as we discussed just recently, is antispasmodic and very good for diarrhea, um, gas, cramping, the whole bit. And I had a little calamus. I always bring a little calamus with me. Also very good antispasmodic. It's astringent. It helps kind of dry things up. And there were some cloves in the spice cabinet. So started with that, 2, 3 cups of that combination of tea on Saturday and Sunday, and things finally settled down for the most part. So those are always good to have on hand. Other things I had on hand that could have been used were mint, and seems there was one other thing I was trying to remember. Oh, fennel. There were some fennel seeds, and that was very effective. So if it had continued today, I was going to include mint and fennel, but things have stopped. But the inflammation is just extreme in my lower abdomen and really wrapping around my back. It's just, I don't know what hit me on this one, but on top of the dental surgery, I've been knocked down pretty hard this week. But let's get into the herb of the week. I think I may be able to do two. Depends on how well my my voice holds out. The first is Leucothoe. Now this one's called Doghobble. There are two varieties of Leucothoe documented for use in herbal medicine. The first is Leucothoe elixaris, which is coastal Doghobble, and the other is Leucothoe grayana. That seems to be more of a European variety, I think, or it may be a Canadian variety. Come to think of it, maybe Canadian. Doesn't really matter. Where I live, there are two native, and that's the coastal Doghobble down on the coast, and mountain Doghobble in the mountains, and that's Leucothoe fontanacea. Now, I don't have specific information for Leucothoe fontanacea, but the first entry I have here is from the Cherokee, and that's the one they would have used, because Cherokee were not a coastal tribe. That was more of the Catawbans that had the coastal of the Carolinas, and it doesn't seem to be a seriously toxic plant. It has a real dense growth pattern. Now it does. There is some toxicity listed, but it's not necessarily like you call it Doghobble. It sounds like an awful name, like it paralyzes dogs or something. No, I think it was just really hard for them to get through the growth, and that's how it gets that name. So the Cherokee used Doghobble as an ingredient in the medicine for muscle soreness, an ingredient in the formula for shifting pains, a leaf decoction including the leaves of Doghobble, Calmia latifolia, the plant we talked about last week, and rhododendron is applied to rheumatic areas for relief. Now, of course, Calmia and rhododendron are very, very poisonous, Calmia being the most poisonous of all. That would only be used externally. I mean, that could that may be a very good application for arthritis and sore aching joints externally, but even a small amount of that taken internally could kill you very quickly. And Doghobble was also an ooze was made, or a thick decoction. Really, more than likely, just kind of beat up the roots and press them. Usually, when they say an ooze, sometimes it's a boiled root press, sometimes it's just like really pulverized, like in a mortar and pestle. But it was applied to the skin of dogs for mange. And they said for humans who have an itch, take a bath in some water in which has been poured a decoction of the leaf and stem tea. Now, modern use, and this is not one that has much modern use. Plants for the Future says it promotes the discharge of mucus from the nose. An infusion of the leaf is taken internally and also used as a wash in the treatment of rheumatism. An infusion of the leaves and stems has been used to bathe itchy skin. Known hazards of Leucothoe. Although no records of toxicity have been seen for this species, at least one other member of the genus is said to have poisonous fruits. So certainly don't ingest the fruits. And I think this is one we're going to put under safest for external use. And yeah, I can get one more here. And this is really one of my favorite plants that grows in the mountains of North Carolina. And it's widespread. You'll find it all up in New York and Canada and down to the mountains of Georgia and Alabama. It does tend to be more of a mountain and foothills plant. But yeah, I think it grows maybe in the Piedmont areas as well. I don't think it goes as far as the swamps and coastal areas. But it's more of a hardwood forest type plant is the way I think of it. And it's Lindera or Spicebush. And you know when you've encountered this plant, it smells like allspice. Yeah, it really it really does. And you can use it similarly to allspice, especially if you're doing like Jamaican cooking, you know, where they take the allspice from pimento bush and they cut it and make a grill and grill the chicken or goat or whatever they're fixing right on there. And it gets that scent of the allspice into the meats. Absolutely delicious, but good for teas and all kinds of stuff. You know it in the woods because you'd be walking along and suddenly like, I smell allspice. And then you just track it down and find it. There's an old Appalachian instrument called well, I think it was called a diddley bow. That's actually a name for two different instruments. But it was basically like a small bow, like you'd use in archery, right? And you put one end of it between your teeth, and you pluck the string and blow through it and make a noise with your mouth. It's kind of like a jaw harp. You know, when people didn't have metal for jaw harps, that's what they used. I made one out of a spicebush branch years ago, probably 20 years ago. And it was so nice to sit there and play it because the aroma and the flavor was delicious. And yeah, it was kind of fun. The old timers enjoyed when I'd like they would be playing in like an old time tune, and I'd sit there and I'd do the, the diddly bow, and they really liked that. So, native to my region, let's see. Well, first of all, 9 varieties of Lindera have documented use in herbal medicine. Lindera assamica, Lindera benzoin, Lindera glauca, Lindera megaphylla, Lindera obtusiloba, Lindera praecox, Lindera pulcherrima, Lindera strychnifolia, and Lindera umbellata. Native to my region are benzoin, the smooth northern spicebush, that's the one that goes all the way up north. Lindera benzoin variety pubens, that's hairy northern spicebush. It's actually what pubens means, is it's hairy, if you ever wonder where that word comes from. Lindera melicifolia, pondberry or southern spicebush, and I think that is the one that grows sort of further east than where I live, and probably further west too, once you get off the mountains. And finally, Lindera subcoriaceae, which is bog spicebush, and that's the one you're going to find more in swampy areas. Spicebush, like I said, one of my absolute favorite plants. And the Cherokee used spicebush, said a bunch of twigs as big as your fist is boiled in water for a short time for a beverage tea. The bark of spicebush, along with Cornus florida, that's just regular old dogwood, and Prunus serotina are steeped. Cannot remember what Prunus serotina. Well, let's see. It's with Prunus, so it's going to be in the plum family, I think. I don't know. I'm not going to remember clear-headed right now. But anyway, those were combined and steeped. And this to add to this tea, pure corn whiskey, and drink to break out the measles. So that's interesting. It must have, I don't know how that works, but couldn't have been half bad tasting, actually. The Cornus florida, that has a quinine-type substance, antiviral, and the spicebush would be warming. I'm not sure what the prunus would do, but that would be interesting to experiment with. So it's boil together the bark of spicebush and hamamelis, that's witch hazel, and some needles of Pinus virginiana. I guess is that white pine, or no, that's Pinus alba. Shortleaf pine maybe, but anyway, Virginia pine, for 5 or 10 minutes to break out a fever. So it has a febrifuge type effect. It would, make you sweat and break a fever. Drink this tea hot and cover up. So that, again, the warming quality of the spicebush. Give the tea to babies to drink for hives. Drink cool, sweet tea for red measles. Interesting. Now, this was official medicine in 1898. King's Medical Dispensatory describes where you can find the plant and what it looks like. And I'm just going to say Google that because, it's going to be hard to understand just from my description. Sorry. Let's see. The chemical compositions, which we don't need to worry about. But under medicinal uses and dosages, it's aromatic, tonic, and stimulant. An infusion or decoction has been successfully used in the treatment of ague, that's fever, and typhoid forms of fever. Also as an anthelmintic. Means gets rid of parasites, if I remember correctly. Yeah, vermifuge and anthelmintic mean the same thing. The berries afford a stimulant oil much esteemed as an application of bruises, chronic rheumatisms, itch, etc., and has some reputation as a carminative in flatulence. That means it helps, well, like I was telling you with fennel seed, it helps get rid of the gas on your stomach and intestines. Used for flatulent colic, etc. The bark in decoction is said to be refrigerant and exhilarating. That means cooling to the body and exhilarating, and exceedingly useful in all kinds of fever. For allaying excessive heat and uneasiness, a warm decoction employed to produce diaphoreses, and a decoction may be drunk freely. So, yeah, that means it helps break a fever. It also helps cool the body. So, really interesting plant in that way. See, apparently there's a Japanese version that had been imported until they found it in America. Modern use, Botany a Day says, medicinally, the sap is high in benzoin, which can maybe be made into an ointment to help heal wounds. You may have seen benzoin or benzoic acid listed in ingredients of healing ointments in your first aid kit. Absolutely. Very good use for that. Plants for a Future says, Spicebush has a wide range of uses as a household remedy, especially in the treatment of colds, dysentery, and intestinal parasites. It warrants scientific investigation. The bark is aromatic, astringent, diaphoretic, febrifuge. Stimulant and tonic. It is pleasant to chew, and it is. It's very pleasant to chew. It is used in the treatment of coughs and colds. The bark can be harvested any time of the year and is used fresh or dried. Very important cold remedy in the Appalachians. Very traditional cold remedy. The fruits are carminative. The oil from the fruits have been used in the treatment of bruises and rheumatism. A tea made from the twigs was a household remedy for colds, fevers, worms, and colic. A steam bath of the twigs is used to cause perspiration in order to ease aches and pains of the body. The young shoots are harvested during the spring and can be used fresh or dried. The bark is diaphoretic and vermifuge. Vermifuge means kills intestinal parasites. It was once widely used in the treatment of typhoid fevers and other forms of fever. Edible parts of the spicebush, the young leaves, twigs, and fruit contain an aromatic essential oil and make a very fragrant tea. The twigs are best gathered when in flower, as the nectar adds considerably to the flavor. The dried and powdered fruit is used as a substitute for the spice, allspice. The fruit is about the size of an olive. Usually doesn't get quite that big, but yeah. The leaves can also be used as a spice substitute. The new bark is pleasant to chew. Medicinal plants of the southern Appalachian states. American Indians made tea of all parts of the spicebush. They drank the tea as a spring tonic to treat coughs and fevers and measles. Spicebush was also used to bring on delayed menses. During the Civil War, spicebush was considered a substitute for allspice, and the berries were used as an aromatic seasoning. And finally, Peterson Field Guide tells us American Indians used berry tea for coughs, cramps, delayed menses, croup, measles, bark tea for swelling, blood purifying, colds, rheumatism, and anemia. Settlers used berries as an allspice substitute. Medicinally, the berries were used as a carminative for flatulence and colic. Sorry. Oh, hopefully I'll be better next week. The twig tea was popular for colds, fevers, worms, gas, and colic. The bark tea was once used to expel worms for typhoid fevers and as a diaphoretic for other forms of fever. Should be investigated. I agree. One of my favorite plants, useful as food and medicine, really nice. And you can probably find a variety that will grow most anywhere you live. Even if you're in a real dry climate, you can try keeping it in a pot. Need a big container pot, like at least a 5-gallon bucket. So y'all, have a good one. I'll talk to you next week.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.